My name's Jon Myers. If you've been on these before, I've hosted these for many years, and I'm very happy to be hosting again. So good afternoon and welcome to the next in the series of Lumar webinars. As ever, we have a great subject and a great presentation for you. But as obviously a shout out as well, if anybody needs closed captioning, we have the ability for you guys to move into closed caption. It is enabled in the session. So if you do need transcript on or anything like that, please do take the time to just whiz through and obviously put that on for yourselves. And obviously today we have a fantastic subject and a fantastic presenter for you, as I've mentioned. Today we're talking SEO for the customer, TOFU, MOFU and BOFU strategies. So if you don't know what they mean, you're very much going to find out what they mean over the next 20 to 25 minutes. And as I say, we've got a great presenter. This is the second time I've done a session with Sophie. She was amazing the last time. Nothing went wrong. It was perfect. It was amazing. Sophie Brannon, Director of SEO from RushOrderTees. No pressure this time around, Sophie, but you were fantastic the last time. And I'm absolutely certain you're going to be fantastic this time. So welcome again, Sophie, and thank you for taking the time to be here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's very exciting.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it as well. I think it's a fantastic subject. So we've got an agenda for you today. So obviously you can get a feel for where we're going with the session as we start to move through, obviously, Sophie's slides. We're going to get into, obviously, the obvious thing, which is introductions and housekeeping. We're going to look at the buyer journey. We're then going to get into our TOFU, our MOFU, our BOFU, and then think about, actually, once you've gone through that process, think about how you keep those customers, how you re-engage with those customers, why they can't want to come back and, you know, work with you or obviously buy from you. And then think about, obviously, the SEO side of that as well, and how we actually use SEO to engage with that customer, and think about that as a strategy as well. And then obviously we'll get into the usual stuff that I love to get into, which is Q&A off the back end. So when we think about the format for today, we have a similar format as we would always have. We've got the presentation, as Sophie's going to get into very, very soon. And then we'll move into the Q&A, and obviously we'll have a little bit of interactive chat as we go through the whole process as well. Please, please, please don't wait till the very, very end of Sophie's presentation to put those questions to us. As you all know, we've got a little Q&A box down at the bottom end of the screen. Get those questions in as Sophie's going through slides, and there's something you'd like to hear more about, there's something you'd like to, you know, get a bit of an insight to as we get into the Q&A at the end. Pop those questions into the chat box, and while Sophie's presenting, I will go through and obviously, you know, collate them all together from the Q&A box, get them ready so we can roll straight into it. At the end of the session, if you've been on before, if you've not, please, 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 we really do value your feedback. So as you start to log out of, obviously, the system, the little window is going to pop up. It will literally take you less than a minute just to give us some feedback. Tell us if you enjoyed it. Tell us some new subjects that you maybe would like to see a webinar on. Maybe there's a presenter that you'd like to see come and do a Lumar webinar as well. It really, really is something that we value. So please do take that time as we go off the back end of the presentation today. And for those who have signed up and have missed it and aren't live with us today, and it's great to see some great numbers, as I say, there's people who've been coming in the whole time that we've been talking. Couple of days down the line as normal, there'll be an on-demand version of this. We'll obviously take the recording, we'll put a blog live with it, we'll cover the questions that we talked about, we'll talk about the subject, and if there are any unanswered questions, we'll make sure we get those answered for you as well on the back end, as we always like to make sure that you guys get everything that you need from this webinar. So I'm going to put you guys on the spot first before we get into what we do. So let's start with a poll question for you all. So this is the poll question. Do you prioritize TOFU, MOFU, BOFU content as part of your SEO strategy? And okay, you might not actually know what those are at the minute. And if you do, I'd love to get your value. So let's start ticking some boxes and let's find out what you guys think. And then we'll get an answer and it can roll in. It might help Sophie actually focus on where she goes next with the presentation as well.
I am really looking forward to seeing the answers to this.
This could be interesting, couldn't it? Yeah,
definitely.
There we go. Oh, it's close.
It's very
close. It's a spread. TOFU's out in front, and then BOFU with MOFU's coming at the back end. So this is going to be interesting to see where this goes. But if you didn't know what those were and you were just kind of going with it, I'm sure over the next 25 minutes, you're going to find out everything you need to know. So without further ado, I'm going to hand the reins over to Sophie Brannon, Director of SEO at RushOrderTees. The floor is yours, And I'm looking forward to listening in on this one as well. Over to you, Sophie.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Jon, for that wonderful introduction and running through all of the housekeeping. And thank you everyone for joining so far. It's great to be back doing this webinar. And today we're going to be talking a bit about the buyer journey, talking about top of the funnel, bottom of the funnel, middle of the funnel, types of content, and how you can really integrate that into your strategy. But before we really touch on TOFU, MOFU, and BOFU, let's talk about the actual buyer journey itself. So all types of sites really do need to be visible, but the one way that I really like to talk about SEO is how it acts a bit more as an assist to other types of channels. So looking at PPC, looking at email marketing, looking at direct traffic, it could be social media we're talking about here. Your SEO campaign doesn't just have to focus on driving kind of revenue, transactions, leads, just through organic as a channel. There is so much more that SEO can cover and so much more of that kind of market landscape that we're then able to kind of distribute, target audience to in order to really drive overall kind of revenue and meet those overall business objectives. But equally, we need to beat our competition, and therefore we need to be visible everywhere. And this is why it's so important to be as visible as possible on the web. So traditionally, when we're talking about user journey and we're talking about buyer journey, everyone kind of talks about it as a really linear thing. People find you, they then have a little bit of research around you, maybe your competition, and then they go and purchase from you directly. But actually, this isn't always the case. And with the kind of introduction of new types of technologies and with the kind of user behavior generally over the years, really, we're consuming so much more than we ever did before. So as an example, an average B2B buyer's journey involves up to 13 pieces of content. And when I'm talking about content, that's not necessarily blog posts or kind of landing pages. That could be across all channels. That could be reviews. That could be social media content. That could be email marketing. So it's important that we are actually able to capture all of this kind of market space. But then even when we're moving away from B2B and we're looking at average consumers, so more of that B2C, D2C kind of channels, people are consuming around 11 to 12 pieces of content there as well. So how can a user journey and a buyer journey be so linear when there's so much that people are consuming before they even make a decision? So AIDA is a really traditional advertising model framework. People are talking about awareness, interest stage, the desire stage, then people taking action. But really, this has evolved so significantly over the years that we're looking at other avenues such as consideration, evaluation, and then past the point of action, that engagement and that loyalty, and how we can tie SEO into all of these different channels so that we are as visible as possible. We're beating all of our competition and we're able to really just showcase our brand everywhere. In fact, 66% of customers really expect companies to be able to understand their needs and their expectations. That means the content that you're producing at every single stage of that conversion journey, be it awareness, interest, consideration, evaluation, action, engagement, or loyalty, a large proportion of your customers already expect that you're going to know what they need and that you're going to be able to answer that and you're going to be able to deliver that service. So really, in order to adhere to that, you need to consider every single touch point along that user journey. Now, when I'm doing an SEO strategy, before I even consider what types of content I'm going to be creating or what types or kind of what target audience I'm even looking for, I really just sit down and I'm like, right, what are the touch points along the user journey? Where are people going? What are they looking for? How am I going to get them to purchase from my site? And so I will even stand there with a whiteboard or a sticky notes or something really practical like that. I mean, as an SEO, we all love our screens, we all love our laptops and working from everywhere. I'm a very much paper girl, like let's get down, let's scribble some notes everywhere. But if we then can break this down into every single touch point along that journey and kind of map out the types of content or the types of different topics perhaps that people are going to be asking, the questions that people are going to have, then we're going to be able to really tie together our overarching SEO strategy across TOFU, MOFU, and BOFU. And then ultimately, when we come to re-engaging those loyal customers after all. So let's dive into the top of the funnel, the real top, people who ultimately know they have a problem, but they don't know how they're going to fix it. This is called the awareness stage when it comes to SEO and just all types of marketing, actually. You'll see TOFU and top of the funnel and the awareness stage used across all different channels. But I really do like to use that as part of SEO as well. When it comes to awareness, there's so many different types of stages and different kind of elements of awareness that then we also need to be quite aware of when it comes to structuring our SEO strategy. A lot of people are actually unaware as part of the awareness stage. They're kind of just browsing. They're just kind of minding their own business, whether that be on Instagram or whether that be on other kind of social channels, whether that be in their email marketing in their inboxes, whether that just be they're browsing the web for something completely different, but then they come across you. They could also be problem aware. They know that they have a problem, but they don't really know how deep that problem is. They don't really know what the solution is that they're going to kind of need to be able to fix that problem, but they know that they have a problem and they're kind of searching around that aspect. And then it comes to the solution aware. And that means they know they've got a problem and they kind of know what kind of a solution they're going to need, but they just don't really know where to go for it, kind of how to find that person or find that business, whether it be an e-commerce site, a content site, a B2B lead gen site, SaaS, anything like that. They know that they need a specific type of solution to solve a specific problem, but they just don't know where to go. Other people are more product aware. So actually, they're looking for a specific product. And some people would argue that this is more middle of the funnel. But for me, the fact that they're aware of a certain product doesn't necessarily mean that they're ready to purchase it. It could just be that they've seen it on another type of channel. Like, as I say, it could be social media, it could even be TV or radio or something like that. But this is where SEO really needs to tie everything all together. And other people are known as most aware. So they know they've got a problem. They know they need a solution for that problem. They know that potentially there's a product that could be out there, whether they know exactly what that product is or not. They know that someone should be selling something or someone should be offering this particular type of service to help them solve this problem. They just don't really quite know where to go for it. So again, as I was mentioning before, SEO is almost acting as an assist. And this is something that Eli Schwartz talks about quite a lot, as SEO being an assist to other channels. And it's not actually always about pushing people just to purchase something or just to kind of sign up to something. And this is where top of the funnel really feeds in. This is much more about building a relationship. It's much more about connecting with your customers before they even really know what that kind of issue is or what that product is or what that solution is. It's also about positioning your brand as an authority in your industry. And lots of people talk about EEAT, expertise, authority, trustworthiness, and the latest edition experience. Positioning your brand as an authority, as a thought leader in that industry with different types of content can really help you to stand out. It can really help to kind of capture people who, again, don't really know what they're looking for yet, but then it just puts you in front of them regardless. And then it can also be almost pre-positioning the product or the brand or the service that you're offering as a really logical solution to the issue that they are facing. Even if they don't know they've got an issue just yet, you're still there, you're still in front of them. So you're the first brand, the first people that these individuals will think of and these individuals will talk about when it comes to eventually coming across that problem. But what are the different types of TOFU content? Well, for me, TOFU, top of the funnel content, is more of the long tail kind of content. It's white papers, it's blogs, it's really focusing on much more of a larger scale kind of strategy. So you've got your specific product or you've got your specific service. What's more of the long tail side of things? What's more of the questions people are asking, not just specific to that product or specific to that service or specific to that category, but just more generally. I'll give you a really prime example of this. So we could be talking about selling t-shirts, for example. Custom t-shirts is what I work in most closely. And we have a lot of customers that will already come to our site and they know exactly what they're looking for. They've ordered from us before, they've ordered from our competitors before. They're not the kind of people we're trying to target with this top of the funnel content. We're trying to look for people who maybe they're planning a bachelorette party or a hen do in the UK, or maybe they're looking at planning a trip, or they're looking at planning a business event, something like this. but they don't have their own design. They may have a logo perhaps, but maybe let's go broader, more B2C side. They may have like a different design, something like that. They don't know what they want to put on this t-shirt, they want to put on this type of custom apparel. Well, why don't we offer some templates? Why don't we give them the top 20 different bachelorette or hen do ideas for 2023? Something really long tail that actually eventually, if people do start using this kind of content to kind of start planning their actual bachelorettes and their hen do's or whatever the event type is, they may end up using our templates, or they may go, oh, actually, custom t-shirts, that's a really good idea. We could use that as part of the event. And suddenly you're in their minds before they even know that that's exactly what they're looking for. So that's really what I mean by that top of the funnel content. Other types of kind of that TOFU content is podcasts, multimedia, different types of videos. Again, not necessarily product specific, but much more brand awareness kind of focused. And again, social media, talking about that brand awareness, talking about that community, about that interaction side of things. There's so many different ways that you can really target more of the top of the funnel audience, the people who don't know you exist just yet. But we can actually build that out much more broader. Again, these are some examples. So this is particularly for a tent. Camping is something that I quite like to do. But let's talk about tents, a tent footprint. Well, I may not even know what a tent footprint is, but I'm searching for something around tents. I know I need a certain size tent. What's the general kind of wording for that, I guess, the actual terminology for that? Oh, it's a tent footprint. So having content around what is a tent footprint, what is a footprint for a tent, very similar terminology, quite significant search volume there for quite a long term. And then going the other way, how to clean a tent, how to stay warm in a tent, how to waterproof a tent. All of these different types of kind of more long tail keywords, these questions that people could be asking. They're not necessarily people who are going to purchase from you straight away. They may be people who potentially have even purchased elsewhere when it comes to more of this how to clean a tent. Well, it sounds like they've already got one. But when you're positioning yourself as that thought leader and that brand authority, you could be then starting to filter them down through that funnel before they even know that that's what's happening. Because what happens when they need a new tent? Well, you've become that primary resource that they go into when it comes to that content, when it comes to that kind of information that they need on a long-term basis. Now, content isn't necessarily the only thing when it comes to top of the funnel either. The technical SEO is actually really the foundation of the SEO buyer journey, and making sure that your kind of site is really available, is crawlable, is indexable. And then eventually you're building authority, you've got that content, you've got a really good user experience. You're asking these questions like, can search engines actually index my page? Can I keep a user's attention on the page if I even get them there in the first place? Using all of these kind of questions will really help you to structure your top of the funnel strategy, not just around content, but then also around the technical aspect as well. And I'll give you an example of this. Nearly 70% of consumers said that page speed impacts their willingness to buy from an online retailer. So now again, you may be thinking, well, willingness to buy, that's way further down the funnel than top of the funnel. But if you're frustrating people when it comes to site speed or when it comes to that initial information that they're trying to find before they even consider you as a brand that they're going to purchase from or that they're going to convert with, well, ultimately, you're going to end up with no customers. You're going to end up really upsetting people so much because your page speed is so slow, you're putting people off. They're never going to get further down that funnel. So really focusing on that technical SEO aspect first and foremost is actually quite a helpful thing before you even start building out that top of the funnel content. And now I want to ask another question to you guys in the audience. If you're looking at an e-commerce site for the first time, and specifically e-commerce this one, what areas would you look at and focus on as really the first part of an SEO content strategy? Excited to see the results of this. This is actually a poll that I've put out on Twitter and I've put out on a couple of social media channels so far. So really interested to see what you're thinking about this as well.
I know what I would say, but I can't answer it. So
I know it's that big red banner at the bottom, isn't it? I was trying to answer the other one.
This is when you find out whether what you've been doing for X number of years has badly gone wrong for you.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, guys, while you're answering this and while I can just jump back in and not spoil Sophie's flow, get those questions in. I mean, so some really interesting topics. If there's any questions that you guys want to ask, obviously we're sort of halfway through the presentation. Please feel free to just fire those questions into the Q&A box now, and then gives me something to do whilst Sophie's presenting.
Oh, again, it's quite very close.
Yeah.
Category and subcategory pages winning at 54%, product pages 35%, branded blog content 7%, and other at 4%. So that top of the funnel content really isn't where a lot of people start.
I'd love to know.
Very interesting. Yeah, me too. Exciting. Okay, well, let's move on to the middle of the funnel. People are talking that they use a lot about category pages, subcategory pages, things like that. And that's really sitting at that middle of the funnel area. There's more of the consideration stage. They've got the problem, they know how to fix it, but they're not quite sure why they should choose you. And this is where people are generally using more of those main head terms around kind of, as I mentioned earlier, custom t-shirts being the prime example of what I work in, but anything such as bank loans, or we're talking about kind of red dress, white trainers, even just trainers, I guess, really is probably a bit more of a middle of the funnel search than it is top of the funnel, although it depends really on what search results say. But that consideration stage, they know they're looking for something specific. So types of MOFU content, I mean, category, subcategory pages, I think that's a very obvious one when it comes to that middle of the funnel. You're trying to optimize, you're trying to rank for those main head terms. But there are other types of MOFU content as well that can really help to push people through that user journey. Because I think people kind of assume when it comes to MOFU content, if we just leave it at categories and subcategory pages, then that's fine. And that's probably what we're going to rank best for, is probably what's going to drive our most traffic. But is that going to push people through that journey? So other things you can do is about promo material, brochures, downloads on your website, different types of resources, more product-led, more specific educational resources around what you're selling, what you're offering. And webinars, informative, building that interaction with the community. And there's loads of different ways that you can do this. And the reason why you would do that as part of the middle of the funnel is because it's your chance to really show your stuff. It's moving away from that generic thought leadership side of things. But actually it's looking more at specifically what you're offering and more about your product or your service and different areas like that. Now, I'm not saying forget about categories, forget about subcategories. They are very important to optimize for, and there's definitely one of the areas that I focus on first when it comes to a lot of strategy. But there's all of these other different areas that you can really capitalize on as well. And the reason for that is because you can really buy into what your customers are actually asking. And some of the ways that you can do that, and some of the ways you can optimize things, even like your categories and subcategories, aside from just specific content, is really answering those questions. But sometimes as SEOs, we're quite really tunneled when it comes to our vision. We've got real tunnel vision. We're kind of isolated a lot of the times from our marketing departments, other teams in the businesses. Even if you're working in-house or whether you're working agency side, it doesn't really matter. But if you can, speak to customer service teams, speak to product merchandising, speak to all of these other different types of businesses, or kind of not businesses, areas within the business, should I say. That will then give you that real understanding of the questions your customers are asking. Build comprehensive Q&A content. It doesn't matter that Google's got rid of FAQ schema, in my opinion at least. Okay, it's not going to be showing up as a rich result anymore. But that doesn't necessarily mean that FAQs aren't important. How you present them is very different sometimes. Should you add schema still? I personally would, unless that schema completely disappears. But building that comprehensive Q&A content, don't forget when it comes to SEO, people are finding you on that specific landing page. So if you're optimizing a category or you're optimizing a subcategory page, generally people are going to be landing straight on that individual page. They're not going to necessarily go all the way to your help center to find things about shipping or pricing or competitor comparison, things like that. Build out that comprehensive Q&A content. Make sure it's not duplicate across your site, but make sure you've got some of those main questions answered on your core category and subcategory pages. And also showcase UGC, user-generated content, reviews content, very important, just generally because people like to think about this. They like to look at your reviews. They like to consume 13 or 11 or 12 pieces of content, depending on the audience type on average, before they then come and purchase from you. So give them everything that they need in the middle of the funnel before they even have to go and view all of this type of content, because you never know, it might speed up their journey. And then from a technical perspective, looking at the middle of the funnel, as I mentioned, speed, that really just is encased across every single area of the business and every single area of the funnel, always a really important factor. But the site architecture, making sure people can navigate to those different pages of content, making sure you've got really strong internal linking, you're passing that link equity through all the different versions of the site, reducing that friction of the user journey as much as possible. It's super easy for them to get from category page to category page if it's an e-commerce site, or for a kind of more of a SaaS site, easy for them to get from service to service page, depending on what they're looking for. And then all of the other bits that tie into that, reviews, as I mentioned, talking about like kind of question and answer content, stuff like that. Reduce that friction as much as possible. And you've got to streamline that journey. And then when it comes to structured data as well, just make sure you've got everything marked up. It's helpful for Google in order to really prioritize and understand what your website's about, regardless of whether or not it's showing rich results anymore. So that's more of the middle of the funnel side of things. So let's talk a bit about bottom of the funnel. So bottom of the funnel is looking at your conversion stage. They're ready to purchase. So really here, you need to give them that final nudge. You need to show them exactly why they should be purchasing from you. Different types of BOFU content, demos, if it's a SaaS company, if it's more of a B2B site, really product specific trials, different areas like that they can actually access their product or access the service as quickly and easily as possible. Case studies, statistics, really help to qualify leads and make sure that ultimately you're getting the best quality leads coming through the site because they're actually the most relevant to you. And then product information, features, benefits, reviews I've already spoken about. It's important at the middle of the funnel, it's important at the bottom of the funnel. And then specifically if you're an e-commerce website, having a really detailed PDP, a product display page, or it can be referred to in other different ways, but basically your product pages. Making sure that's super, super detailed without overwhelming the user, but just having everything they need to know in a really clear layout. User experience is taken into consideration here. That can really help push them over the line and give them that nudge for that bottom of the funnel content. And again, your EEAT matters here a lot. Reviews shows off that positive experience that other people have had with your company. Your website content itself, the actual product page content or the demos, the case studies, it shows your experience and it shows your expertise. And your UGC, that's also really important. Your about us page, your contact info, it shows how trustworthy you are as a business. And that's all the types of things that are going to help to push your people, your customers down the conversion funnel. And then from a technical perspective, this kind of edges away slightly from technical SEO, some of these points, and looks a lot more at maybe UX and development, but make sure you've got a working checkout or lead form. And it sounds simple, and it's not necessarily an SEO problem, I guess, but you as SEOs are going to be measured on metrics like transactions, on revenue, on lead gen, on kind of form fills, all of those different types of conversions. If your checkout doesn't work properly, your lead form doesn't work properly, things aren't tracking correctly, the people who are going to get kind of their heads cut off for that, and they're going to get in trouble for that, it is the SEO team. Or if we were talking about other channels, it'd be exactly the same thing: PPC, social media, email marketing channels, whatever that is. The people who are in charge of driving that are going to be the ones who get in trouble for that. So just make sure that it actually does work, because you will be shocked at the amount of times I've seen campaigns, whether it's agency side, whether it's kind of working with different types of brands, where just the general setup of the site hasn't been done correctly. Also, from a technical perspective, clear call to actions. Make sure the user journey is smooth. Again, rendering, speed, not just on your main core pages that hold your main head terms in the middle of the funnel and have the higher search volumes. That's not where people convert. It's where a lot of people come in, but then they've got to continue through that journey and they need to convert on more of your product pages or on your service pages, things like that. And the rendering, the speed has to be really spot on too. And then the overall user experience, just making sure everything is as streamlined as possible. So you've got people to the site from the top of the funnel, they've journeyed through the middle of the funnel, or perhaps some people have visited you straight from your main head terms. And then you've got the bottom of the funnel side of things as well, in terms of your product pages, your main service pages, where people are totally going to convert. So let's talk a little bit about loyalty and re-engagement. A lot of the time, once people have converted, they can actually be forgotten about a lot. And this isn't a good thing. This is generally what happens with a lot of websites. People focus, and a lot of SEO strategies really, people focus on that traffic volume, driving new customers to the site, and then just forgetting about the people who have already actually converted. But your most valuable customers are the ones that are already bought into what you do. And most of the time, that's people who have already purchased from you. It's cheaper and it's easier to retain than it is to bring in new customers. And that's a really important factor to consider, because at the end of the day, if you're having to spend less on your marketing budgets overall when it comes to gaining new, but you're able to push kind of funds into the re-engagement side of things, that's also a really important thing. And that can actually be done really well from an SEO perspective too. So when it comes to how many purchases does it take for really gaining that brand loyalty, a lot of shoppers really consider themselves to be loyal after actual 5 purchases from the same brand. And a lot of people who work in e-commerce know that that's sometimes harder than what it kind of sounds, to really keep re-engaging people and keep people coming back, particularly if you've got competitors who are undercutting you on the market, or you've got you're working in a real fast industry, maybe it's fast moving consumer goods, anything like that. It can be hard to keep people working and purchasing with you. So how can you build that brand loyalty over time? The strategy is very similar to that top of the funnel side of things. Leveraging your online reputation, integrating seamlessly with other online channels. So previously we was talking about social media, let's talk about email marketing and remarketing to customers who have already purchased on your site. The other way you can do it is provide ongoing support. And that doesn't have to be through a customer service team. That can be ongoing support through really website content, different areas of the site that you can actually re-engage with and help people to keep coming back so they don't have to call you, making that whole kind of service as seamless as possible. And then give customers what they need, ultimately, before they know that they need it. That's the other way to keep people loyal. Don't cause them a problem, but give them a solution at every single angle. Whether you're working for Sky TV and you're offering a really extensive support kind of guide, or whether you're working for an e-commerce company and you're helping them to understand how they can re-engage with everyone. Lumar actually does this brilliantly, and it was quite interesting. I was looking for different examples of businesses who do this well, and funnily enough, Lumar is one of them. They have this huge kind of academy, the ebooks, the webinars and events, the blog section, it's resources outside of just their platform. The webinar that you're on today, you're hearing of Lumar not just because of the actual tool and the technology itself, but everything else that they're offering. And that's a very similar strategy as to what you can do with your businesses as well. So SEO at scale. One of the things that we kind of talk about as SEO strategies, and particularly if you're working agency side, you end up kind of in a bit of a hole where you can only work on websites for a certain number of hours per month, and it doesn't matter how large the businesses are, you're only able to do so much. But when you're working in-house, it's a very different kind of story, and you're working on a much bigger picture. So when it comes to these much larger websites, how do you scale that SEO content side of things? Well, there's different ways. You can build out keyword research across all areas of the funnel, and then using that data and using that information, you can prioritize the output. That could be based on things like search volume, or it could be based on things like potential traffic. But in my opinion, it's actually better to focus on what actually makes sense to your customer journey, rather than just chasing volume for the sake of it. Because when you go into the route of the top of the funnel content, you can end up really targeting different types of audiences, really kind of broadening that out as much as possible to build out your brand visibility, which is definitely a great technique. But make sure you are solidly focusing on your customer journey first and foremost, for the people who are going to be most beneficial to you as customers. And then structure different content types around that can then actually be recreated, different formats, different kind of topics, different areas that you can cover that you could then really build out. Some people call this a hub and spoke strategy. Other people just use it as more of a template. So whether that's a listicle kind of blog format, or whether your category pages are all going to have the same kind of structure when it comes to your FAQs, whatever that is, have that template in place, and that can actually help when it comes to scaling that side of things. And when it comes to where should I start, I spoke about that previously, about, well, I asked you guys that poll, I asked you that question, and everyone really had the same kind of answer, which was really interesting. Categories, subcategories winning, product pages second, branded and blog content third, other kind of fourth, but maybe that covers a broader range. We'll have to wait and see. But really understanding where you're scaling that content, whether that's your category and subcategories, whether that's your product pages, whether that is your branded or your blog content, regardless of the type of business you're working on, being able to scale that is really important in order to be most effective. Now, the hot topic of the year, AI. Can we use AI to create this content? In my opinion, it's better not to. Just because I've seen loads of AI content that is low quality. I've tried to use it in the past for my own tests of my own kind of understanding of how tools like ChatGPT, Claude, Bard, all these other different areas of AI can really be used to streamline our processes as SEOs. But I just don't find their content quality is that good. It can't showcase your industry experience. It isn't always accurate. It's not always trustworthy. And a lot of the time it can easily be identified as AI. But saying all of that, I have seen AI content rank quite well in Google for long tail terms for now. But a lot of the time, as a caveat, that AI content has been edited by a real human when it comes to understanding the brand, when it comes to understanding the accuracy of that industry. The way personally I like to use AI when it comes to scaling content is to give inspiration, give content ideas, give better structure for the kind of content you're creating, get a better understanding of that target demographic and the types of things that they're searching for. This is all the types of things that AI can be useful when it comes to scaling that content. And then use it to kind of create structured data and other technical assistance. We were talking earlier about how important technical SEO is for all different stages of the funnel, but really using it to your advantage to help streamline some of your technical side of things, especially if you're really struggling with dev resource or you're struggling with buy-in from developers and things like that. If there's anything you can do yourself, or you can get assistance from AI tools like ChatGPT or other ones, then definitely use it to your advantage. And that can help you to do things at scale. But again, always check, always have that human first approach. So just to kind of summarize everything, when it comes to your whole buyer journey, just be passionate about your product and about how you promote it, whether that's top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, bottom of the funnel, all of those different conversion journeys throughout. SEO should really assist other channels as well as driving its own revenue, its own transactions, and its own lead generation. And you can also make sure that you prioritize speed, user journey, architecture, and discoverability. And that's going to be a key part of your overarching SEO strategy throughout the whole buyer journey. And as I've said before, this has happened so many times to me, but just make sure the checkout experience is good, or if it's a form, it's actually working properly and people can fill in their names correctly and different things like that. It really makes a big difference to your whole user journey. And that's everything. Thank you so much.
Oh, amazing, Sophie. Thank you so much. Got lots of questions, which is wonderful. So I'm going to dive straight into them. So we've got about 5 minutes of a Q&A left before, obviously, because we don't want to keep people too long who are starting their working day or finishing their day or whatever it might be. But great content and great presentation, and people have been pinging me whilst you've been doing that. And I always like to start with the first one, which kind of came in early doors. When you were talking probably in the MOFU section, it was just a question around, the usage of comparison articles. Is that something that you would see as a good option for, a retention type process, or is a comparison article not something you would play with over other areas?
I mean, I quite like the idea of a comparison article, especially I think this works a lot better in SaaS. I see it a lot on SaaS websites, but rather than it being a comparison article as such, it can be like a comparison on a main landing page. So you can really showcase the differences of maybe features or maybe benefits, different areas like that on your kind of more category, subcategory service pages. When it comes to kind of comparison articles such as I don't know, the best surfboards in Australia, or whatever that kind of topic is, those more, those kind of comparison articles as such. I would say that that is definitely more of a kind of top of the funnel, maybe even middle of the funnel kind of article, just because you can then break that out into so many different areas. That could be the best surfboards in Australia for beginners, the best surfboards for intermediates, the best surfboards for advanced. And then you could build that out even further, the best types of, like the best materials for surfboards, the best surfboard wax for beginners, intermediate, and then you can really build that out as a whole kind of hub and spoke strategy. So yeah, there's definitely something you can feed into your SEO strategy. And I'd say really it can fit probably top of the funnel, middle of the funnel. It's a bit of a blurred line really there.
Yeah, no, good point. And I could see I could kind of fit into many different guys. And you say you see a lot of these sorts of web pages rank on Google when you start asking about, it could be watches or golf equipment or whatever it might be. They're always there and rank pretty higher from the publishers. And I think they use
100%.
Quite a lot, isn't it? So
100%. And lots of affiliate sites use comparison articles and they tend to rank really well. I also see it, like I said, in SaaS quite a lot, just general content sites. There's so many ways that you can do comparison types of articles, but yeah, it's definitely a good strategy.
Definitely. So thinking about publishers, which leads me quite nicely into my next question. You'd think I would plan that or something, wouldn't you? Jim Jackson's just asking, from an SEO perspective, how do you think about a site that's focused on providing fact-based information, in a specific niche as such? He says many of their users are publishers who themselves link to that content to support their research. And obviously their goal is to drive traffic and engagement as a publisher with no physical products to sell. So, kind of, does it work if you haven't got something to sell? As a publisher, there's no physical product there. Is it kind of worth investing that time and kind of going down that route of creating that sort of fact-based information? Or is there really a need to have that, item to sell to be successful in what we're talking about here today?
No, I don't think so. I've worked on a huge number of content-led sites that don't sell kind of products, don't have like services or anything like that, and they are just publishers, whether that's news sites. I've worked with all different types of these kind of content-based sites across the US, across the UK, and Australia as well. There's so many out there. And I think they are really valuable resources to have. They are the types of content that you can really use, the types of site you can really use more of that hub and spoke strategy with. So as I was mentioning there about the surfboard side of things, so you can really just build and branch that out as much as possible. Things, when I say things, keywords around best, compare, stuff like that, talk about going back to those comparison articles, but even just general information. That's very much the top of the funnel. But if traffic and general engagement, time on site, different things like that is actually what your overall business objective is, that top of the funnel strategy and really building out so much of that more long tail, long form content is what's going to be beneficial. The reason why you end up going down the funnel in terms of MOFU, BOFU, things like that, is when you do have something necessary to sell at the end. But affiliate sites, they typically will gain a lot of traction, a lot of traffic, and then a lot of money as well by just creating all of this really long form, long tail based content, really that top of the funnel. And that can definitely just be a focus point of the strategy.
No, definitely, without a doubt. So I was hoping you were going to say that, because I kind of would have absolutely agree with what you're saying. So then one thing you did touch on was retargeting and using SEO for, retargeting customers in some respects. Basically, Lumar is asking the question of how would you retarget a customer with SEO? Is it like ranking for the same keyword for a long duration? So obviously when they search for you again, they see you're there, and obviously you could maybe change up, meta description and stuff like that, make offers or something. That's me just coming up with some ideas there. But how would you use SEO from a retargeting perspective?
So when I talk about retargeting, I am also talking about feeding into email marketing campaigns and talking about feeding into kind of PPC and things like that. But when it comes to SEO, again, it's that long form content, more of that top of the funnel stuff. It's answering people's questions. So if they, for example, if they've purchased something from you or they've signed up to a service that you're offering, but there's a bit of friction in that kind of whole process, you may not see it, but they may have all of these different kind of questions about the product, about the service. They may need support at different kind of levels. And I think Salesforce, HubSpot, things like that do this quite well, where they then have this big support kind of section. So when people are kind of going back and they're asking forums, different types of questions. We're kind of Googling like, oh, I'm having this particular issue with this product. How can I fix it? Or a real life prior example, IKEA bought a wardrobe from there the other day, tried to put it up. The instructions were impossible. They were just diagrams and pictures, and half of them weren't printed out properly. So I had to go online and I was like, right, IKEA, how to build this particular type of wardrobe. And the whole like PDF file, everything was online already.
They're
and
fantastic for that, I have to say.
Yeah, they really are. Like it saved so much time because I was just shoving nails in all sorts of weird places when it came to that wardrobe. Poor thing, it's going to fall over in about 2 seconds. I can guarantee it. But anyway, going back to that retargeting side of things, it's not retargeting in the same way that if someone is on a particular page and leaves, you're then targeting them with specific ads, or if they're through the checkout process and they've got items added to the basket, you're emailing them with all of these different types of products that they've got in their basket already. When I'm talking about SEO retargeting, it's not that. It's more about being visible everywhere, all of the different types of questions they could be asking. So if they are trying to do, say they come in and they are looking for a specific product or they're looking for a service and they found you, they then leave and they want to do a comparison. So going back to those comparison articles with you and another competitor, because there's 11 to 13 touch points in the standard user journey, will just be everywhere. Have a comparison article there. It's like, oh, they're there again. Or have dominate really the reviews section. So have a page on your site about your particular brand reviews. When they're going, this particular brand's reviews, oh, they're there again. And you are just everywhere. And that acts almost as retargeting. It's having all of those different types of content at all of these different stages of the journey.
Yeah, no, absolutely great answer. And the guys that actually raised the question and put in the chat box saying, yep, got it. Thanks so much for the answer. So that's fantastic. I think you nailed that one. I'm going to ask one final question because I know we're running out of time. We're about 5 minutes over at the minute. And I'm just conscious that I'd just like to get this final question in there, because it's a great one from Martin. How would you adapt these learning insights to products which are, majorly effectively sold out in the online environment? Should branding and performance strategies be considered separately? Because it is obviously always an interesting question that you carry products that people buy and they sell out. How do you manage that process and obviously, if anything, not upset the customer in some respects who spent the time looking to engage with your brand?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, when it comes to those kind of more offline experiences, those offline environments, if you have a shop and you predominantly sell offline in an actual store, for example, make sure you've got things like your Google My Business listings really kind of tight. You've got them really optimized. You're showing up in map listings and things like that for those kind of things. When it comes to if loads of products kind of go offline and you don't have them in stock, but you can get them from the supplier, and that kind of all has to be arranged separately and it's not an online service, give people a really easy way to get in touch with you to ask those questions. And then again, just having all of that real kind of support content on the site, being able to really target each and every single question, frustration, possible issue that any kind of customer might have. Even if it's 1 in 1,000, if you've got the answer to that question in a blog, in a guide, in a help center, in an FAQ, something like that, you'll be much more really helpful to your users, regardless of whether they're able to shop online or shop offline. But just make that user experience obvious and easy, so they can quite easily get in touch with you if you are doing it in more of an offline. So clear call to actions. Live chats are a really helpful one to have, really clear contact information. Again, your Google My Business listings kind of promoted properly. All of these different avenues can really help you to capture the people that you need, but then direct them in the way that you need them to.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Well, folks, again, the time flies by. We're out of time again. It just seems to disappear so quickly when we start doing these things. And obviously 50 minutes later, here we are today. So obviously a massive thank you to everybody for attending today. As I say, in the UK, it's been the hottest day of the year. So I mean, it's a massive thing for you guys to be here in some respects. And obviously it's 10 to 6 now. A massive thank you to Sophie Brannon for taking the time to present for us today some great content. And Sophie, if you could just move on to the next slide, just I'm going to one more slide for everybody before they go. Thank you very much. Obviously, there's loads of things going on at Lumar at the minute, and obviously we're going into a big week in the UK. Brighton SEO is next week. We will be there. We're sponsoring the party as normal on the night before, so we hope to see quite a few of you down there at the party. It's something that's happened and Lumar's done for years. So Brighton SEO is 14th, 15th of December. Come and say hi. Obviously, if you want to request a demo, there's a QR code up there, which you can grab today. But obviously, if you're in Brighton, go and grab a demo on the stand or anything like that. Also, obviously, there's the new edition of US Brighton SEO as well. So anybody of our US people, we know we've got a lot of people on the call today from the US and Canada. 9th and 10th of November, San Diego, I believe it is. If you're in town and you're around, you know, we will be there and on the ground. So do jump in there and say hi and have a demo on the stand of obviously the product that we have today. And for anybody that's interested in AI, our next webinar is on the 27th of September. So like literally less than 3 weeks away now. And the topic is around AI and SEO. So that will always be a fantastic and interesting topic to get into, because there's a huge amount of talk about AI at the moment. And it's very interesting when you start to think about how do you couple AI to SEO. So that's it from us. My name's Jon Myers. I've had the pleasure of hosting Sophie again today, and she's done a fantastic job round two. Maybe we'll do it for a third go at some point in the future. And I'd like to say a big thank you to everybody. This was obviously the Lumar webinar. Thank you and good night.